What this all implies is that if there's two channels that you're communicating on, which is the literal channel of what you're saying, and then there's this underneath perception, your eye contact you mentioned, your tone of voice, your rhythms, how you respond to things. That's called your subcommunication. Subcommunication is going to matter far more to girls than communication. All right? So again, pickup line, easy to fake. The tone of voice while saying it, a bit harder to fake. Right? The tone of voice when given shit, even harder to fake. So subcommunication matters more than your communication. And this is why, back in the day, little story of pickup history, in about 2002, 2003, when we'd teach like pickup programs, we'd create these like sequences of routines. Tell this story, use this tease, that kind of stuff. And we as coaches would go say these things and do these things, and they worked really well. Students would do them, and they worked not even a little bit well. They worked so god-awful badly, it was ridiculous. Okay? They're so bad. Why? Because the delivery was all wrong. Right? In fact, they worked worse than if the student had just gone up and just said whatever came to their mind. Right? Because if the student had said what came to their mind, they might have been perceived as weak or nice or lame or whatever, but at the very least, they wouldn't be perceived as having an agenda. Right? But when you're going up and you're saying these like cocky asshole lines, and all your body language is saying like, I'm weak and nervous and I hope this works, that's about the worst reaction you can possibly get from a girl. Okay? So again, the exact same words with different subcommunication just won't work. Right? And the subcommunication matters more than the communication. All right, why is that? Because it's unintentional. Because it's more likely to be negative. Sorry guys, it sucks, but it is. Because it's difficult to change. How many of you guys have tried to change your subcommunication? Yeah? How easy is it? Hard. Not very, right? Not very easy, which is why this is what girls are queuing on, right? The sort of like happy and sad truth of getting good with girls is that in the process, you have to make yourself a better person, right? Because all the easy things to fix are dishonest signals, right? You have to actually like mature and grow in some way to give these more honest signals. I also remember that these are not conscious responses on the part of girls. Right? So a lot of times, if you ask a girl, why did you like this particular guy or why did you not like this other particular guy? Sometimes they'll know. Sometimes they'll explicitly know, but a lot of times what it really was is it's something like his vibe was a little off or he was perceived as having an agenda, and then the girl will single out some little trait that may or may not actually be the case, but that's what she rationalized, right? Because in order for the genes to be acting effectively, they don't have to be acting consciously. Does that make sense to you guys? That last part is very important to understand. Right? I'll give you kind of this may muddle it or may make it clearer, but I'll try. Have you guys ever seen like a chicken that plays tic-tac-toe? Have you ever seen that? Some of you guys, a few of you guys? You can teach a chicken to play perfect tic-tac-toe. Like you can teach a chicken to never lose a game, okay? However, do you think you can teach a chicken to understand the idea of winning and losing and to care and to like understand like strategy and placement of, not really, right? They're not that sophisticated. So how can you teach a chicken to play tic-tac-toe if they're not smart enough to fundamentally understand any of the concepts in good tic-tac-toe? Here's how you do it. Basically, you have like a little thing that they peck at. And what happens is when they peck in certain patterns or when they peck in certain ways, they get fed. And when they peck in other ways, they don't get fed. And they have no idea why they're pecking in that way. They just know that this particular thing leads to a good stimulus, this other particular thing leads to a bad stimulus. And they learn it truly on a subconscious level. Like they have no fucking idea of the rules of tic-tac-toe, but they can play it perfectly just through their instincts because they've been trained. Does that make sense? So it's the same kind of thing with us as people, right? We oftentimes can act very intelligently on an instinctive level without rationally even knowing what we're doing, right? Because it's been trained through millennia of evolution and decades of personal experience, right? But it's also a very, very important thing to understand that there is this logical emotional split. Okay, quick note on all this evolutionary stuff, which is this. A lot of people, when you think about evolution, what people say, they say survival of the fittest, right? You guys have heard this, survival of the fittest? That's not what it is for humans, really. And the reason for that is human beings are at the top of the food chain. So we all pretty much survive. Like humans against nature, we're all doing just fine, right? Where we don't do well is in reproducing against other humans, okay? So for us, it's not about what's called natural selection, survival of the fittest, it's about sexual selection, right? It's competition for mates against other human beings, okay? So the upshot of this is that our evolution has a lot to do with how we interact with other human beings, not how we interact with the natural world. And a lot of it has a social nature. Does that kind of make sense? Right? So it's not necessarily like, for example, stand up for a second. Okay, so this guy versus me on the savannas of Africa, who do you think's better off if we were left alone? Probably him, right? He could beat up more predators than I could, right? Now, I'm not going to necessarily say I get laid more than him, but there's a good chance I do. I don't know. He may be a pimp. I don't know. But, whatever, right? But the point is, I can look the way I do and have him look the way he does, and I still have a chance of saying that's true. Does that make sense? Because it's not just about the natural selection factors. It's about all these social selection and other factors. Thank you. Go ahead and sit down. Thank you. All right? So understand that, right? Understand it's not just about how many, lions we could beat up or, how many buffalo we could kill anymore. It's about these other factors involving how we deal with other humans and how human beings react to us. So that's absolutely critical.